Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. By now you know we did a bunch of interviews on film. Of course we had Mindspeak over the weekend, and going by the ripple from that session, people have really enthused with what the UNCTAD Secretary General had to say. That link is there, so is the Mindspeak session. There's also an interview with Charles Ireland, giving us a perspective on East African breweries, dominant player in this region. Interview with Joshua. Joshua's playing an expansive game, looking to expand into Mozambique, Ethiopia, put out there an aggressive growth plan. Of course, Buvi Gunze, who's is trying to catch a ball of fire, as it were, at Kenya Airways. And finally, there's an interview with Pradeep Pamrana, who is the MD of Arthur River Cement, and gives us a good perspective on the cement world from where he sits. Home thoughts. I like this photograph that Sotheby's posted of Andy Warhol, pop icon, indeed he was. And then took me to Paul Auster, the Book of Illusions, where he says, we all want to believe in impossible things, I suppose, to persuade ourselves that miracles can happen. And I like this photograph on Bloomberg. Lexus and Iveco installed magnets throughout a skate park in Barcelona to create a test bed for their hoverboard. Lovely photograph. And then this as well, a night at Deadvlei in Namibia, a photograph of Beth McCarley. The night before returning to Windhoek, we spent several hours at Deadvlei. The moon was bright enough to illuminate the sand dunes in the distance, but the skies were still dark enough to clearly see the Milky Way and the Magellanic clouds. Deadvlei means dead marsh. The camel thorn trees are believed to be about 900 years old, but have not decomposed because the environment is so dry. Political reflections. New York Times says 70 years ago the first atomic bomb destroyed Hiroshima and ushered in the atomic age. I put up a photograph of Hiroshima, the bomb going off that I found, and then a link to a video, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki film. They didn't want you to see it. It's about a 3-minute introduction. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? The loss of life, the scale of it. It's painting on an enormous canvas, destruction. John Kerry has warned Congress about the risk of screwing the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah constantly believe that we are untrustworthy, that you can't negotiate with us, that we will screw them, Kerry said. This, a congressional rejection, will be the ultimate screwing. He went on to argue that the United States Congress will prove the Ayatollah's suspicion, and there's no way he's ever coming back. He will not come back to negotiate out of dignity, out of a suspicion that you can't trust America. America is not going to negotiate in good faith. It didn't negotiate in good faith. Now would be his point. And that took me back to the Shah of Shahs and Richard Kapuscinski, page 106. It is authority that provokes revolution. This occurs when a feeling of impunity takes root among the elite. We allowed anything. We can do anything. This is a delusion, but it rests on a certain rational foundation. For a while it does indeed look as if they can do whatever they want, scandal after scandal, illegality after illegality go unpunished, the people remain silent. They are afraid and do not yet feel their own strength. At the same time they keep a detailed account of the wrongs which at one particular moment are to be added up. The choice of that moment is the greatest riddle of history. He's got a lot of criticism for his style of writing. I don't know what you call it, sort of dream sequence, faux realistic. It's brilliant. And the point is, just think of what he's saying there. He's absolutely right. The choice of that moment is the greatest riddle of history. The speculation among pilots right now is that must have come down at a relatively shallow angle. This is the plane, says Tracy Lamb. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi is on trial. This photograph was of him on trial on video link in June 2014. He has not been seen in public since then. And this victor's justice is very red in tooth and claw, isn't it? Currency markets, the euro is at 109.09, dollar index when I looked last 97.83, Japanese yen 124.83. That's moved back towards multi-year lows of about 125.70. Swissy 0.9787, the pound a little bit firmer, 156.24. Aussie had a weak number this morning, 0.7328. India rupee 63.765, South Korean won 11.6868. Rial, which I'm very bearish, is at 348.78. I think it's going to fall. Egyptian pound 7.8295, and the rand at a 2001 low of 1276.68. Obviously, the spectre of higher US interest rates is benefiting the dollar. Lifted the dollar index against a basket of 6 currencies to a 3.5-month high of 98.218. Index last stood at 97.872. That move against the yen, that's clearing big resistance at 124.50. And the euro touched 108.47, popped back above 109. We're now at 109.10. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. My target is 110, which I've had for a while. Euro dollar eventual target is 0.93. You can see what that looks like on a 3-month chart. And dollar Canada, about which I spoke previously, my target is now 140. And dollar Canada is currently around 131.64. Coming to the commodity markets, gold, we're at, what are we at, 1086.35, finding a little bit of support down here, but it's hanging on by its fingernails, in my view. Holger tweeted a image of Brent and WTI price chart. I think there's a meltdown coming here. Interesting piece in the Telegraph, Saudi Arabia may go broke before the US oil industry buckles. If the oil futures market is correct, Saudi Arabia will start running into trouble within 2 years. It will be an existential crisis by the end of the decade. The contract price of US crude oil for delivery in December 2020 is currently $62 a barrel, implying a drastic change in the economic landscape for the Middle East and the petro-rentier states. Saudis took a huge gamble last November when they stopped supporting prices and opted instead to flood the market and drive out rivals, boosting their own output to 10.6 million barrels a day in the teeth of a downturn. Bank of America says OPEC is now effectively dissolved. I agree with them, and I wrote about this before. Now, in December 2014, I said the US has now emerged as the new price setter for the oil market, and essentially that's what's being said here as well. I called it 21st century shock and awe, and a bullet has not even been fired. I cited President Obama saying he's been very subtle, skilled, hard-nosed exponent of currency and now oil warfare. 2014 in October, I spoke about who kneecapped oil, and I called for a blow-off bottom below $50 a barrel when it was trading much, much higher. I said then, in October, the US administration has turned price slasher. Like in Alfred Hitchcock's totemic movie Psycho, oil has been sliced up real good. The US has flooded the oil market, and the commodity is now a geopolitical spear. Let me put up a 3-month chart of WTI. My target is below $40. Sub-Saharan Africa, Tristan McConnell tweeted Burundi protest masks by Goran Tomasevic via Foreign Affairs. I like the photograph. A local leader of Burundi's ruling party was attacked and killed in Bujumbura, officials said on Wednesday, the third high-profile attack in 3 days. Kome Harerimana, president of the CNDD-FDD chapter in Kanyosha district, was heading to his office on the back of a motorbike when a crowd threw stones at him, the official said. Hariri Mama was pulled from the motorcycle and shot. And then an interesting report on Human Rights Watch, Amy Braunschweiger, rumours of his death. This is swirled before Burundi's Bombay Pipa was shot. The attack was well planned. On Monday morning, panic spread after rumours began circulating on social media that Pierre Claver Bonimpa, Burundi's leading human rights activist, had been killed. In reality, he was alive and well, working away as usual. And subsequently, the next rumour was real when he was dead. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India issued a joint statement with the President of Mozambique in New Delhi. Nyusi was visiting, spoke about boosting maritime security cooperation. Africa and the Indian Ocean are among the highest priorities for our foreign policy. Mozambique is crucial for both, said Modi. I spoke about this in 2013, when I said I have no doubt that the Indian Ocean is set to regain its glory days. And I quoted Felipe Fernandez Amesto, who says the precocity of the Indian Ocean as a zone of long-range navigation and cultural exchange is one of the glaring facts of history, made possible by the reversible escalator of the monsoon. The monsoon would take you from India all the way to Mozambique, turn around and bring you all the way back. That would all happen in a 12-month period. And I was saying, I have no doubt that the Indian Ocean is set to regain its glory days. If you think of it as an Indian Ocean economy, it becomes very interesting. Let me put up a photograph of Pemba Island seen from the sky. That's Mozambique. Angolans feel squeeze as oil price plunge tempers post-war boom. Builder How Victor is witnessing the havoc plummeting crude prices are wreaking on Angola's oil-addicted economy. I used to have government contracts to build schools and health centres, Victor said. Now I can't get anything because of the oil prices. Angola relied on fuel to generate about 70% of taxes and 95% of export income last year. As the price plunged 50% in the past 12 months, government slashed this year's budget by a quarter, cutting fuel subsidies and freezing hiring. The state's crude company, Sonangol, announced $1 billion of cost reductions by the end of 2015. Government spending accounts for more than a third of Angola's $129 billion GDP economy. That's 2.5 times Kenya, by the way, just to put it in perspective. And saying, the hardship wrought by the oil market meltdown extends beyond government cutbacks. Inflation rose to 9.6% in June. Central bank expects it to accelerate to 10.4%. The increase in the fuel price put me against the wall. The prices of all basic goods have gone up. It's not going to get any better anytime soon, in my opinion. Let me put up a photograph of President Dos Santos and the Prime Minister of Italy, Matteo Renzi, and a photograph I found from Nois dos Santos, July 21st, Luanda, the view from the sky. South African oil share bumped 0.64% higher yesterday. It's up 6.03%. It's actually performed really well this year. Dollar Rand 12.76. My target from a while back is 14. The Rand has now dropped to a 2001 low. It's down 9.6% year to date. I think it's headed a lot lower. New York Times tweeted President Sisi of Egypt celebrating the new Suez Canal as if it were an epic military victory. He is recalling Gamal Abdel Nasser, who of course took back control of the Suez Canal, and I think he's trying to play to that sense of history that the Egyptians will recall. Sky News Biz: Egypt opens new £6 billion Suez Canal waterway. Quite an attractive photograph they posted as well. And apparently on July the 28th he inspected the new Suez Canal by the air, and I'll put up that photograph. The Egyptian stock market is down 9.097% year to date. The Nigerian all share is down 9.38% year to date, but interestingly surged 3.1% higher yesterday. Ghana Stock Exchange down 3.62% year to date. Via a tweet from McKinsey Society, last year in Africa, mobile money generated $656 million in revenue, reports Shirufu. I like this photograph from the Rwanda High Commissioner in Kenya. The aerial night view of Kigali city, one of the safest, cleanest and most orderly cities on the globe. And that's not an exaggeration, frankly. The central bank here in Kenya kept the policy rate steady. And I'd said that to Bloomberg, that I said he can afford to take a pass this time. I was saying higher rates aren't helping to stem the shilling slide. It's a story of dollar strength, as you can see. We talk about it all the time, and the currency's weakness is yet to translate into faster inflation. Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, was visiting and has made some interesting points in a piece in Quartz, Kenya's inspiring technological transformation. We recently changed our mission statement in Microsoft to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. Last week in Kenya, I had a first-hand opportunity to see this mission in action, he says. We often read about the world being flat, with people having access to information from everywhere. The reality is that's not always the case for the 4 billion people in the world who don't have access to the internet or the economic opportunity that comes with connectivity. This is the situation for a majority of rural Kenyans. And as I saw last week, they are hungry for connectivity to pursue their livelihoods and passions. When I think about what I saw in Kenya and what it means for the future, it's clear that new technologies will empower more people and spread opportunity more evenly. Nairobi All Share eased back 0.29% yesterday, but the velocity of the descent slowed. It's still hitting fresh 2015 lows, down 10.479% this year. NSE 20 closed 0.6% lower at a fresh 30-month low, and that's retreated 15.55% this year. I took this photograph of Globe Roundabout, which is in the city of Nairobi, from an office I was visiting yesterday. I'll post that. The shilling is holding steady at 101. When I looked this earlier before I went to the podcast, the central bank has tightened the screw big time in the short end of the yield curve. Overnight money, for example, is around 20%. As I said, the Nairobi All Share eased 0.29%. Yesterday, NSE 20 down 25.93 points. We've seen heavy volume turnover. Clocked 1.853 billion shillings yesterday. Cumulative total in the last two sessions, 3.732 billion. Agri sector has been a safe haven in this downdraft, served up some strong absolute returns in 2015. Kakuzi, for example, up 18.55%, firmed 1.246% yesterday. Safaricom ticked 0.357% easier to close at 13.95 and has traded 113 million shares over 2 trading sessions. Nation Media eased back 1.6% to close at 184. They will be reporting earnings. Joe Muganda's the new CEO's first earnings release. It's down 30% year to date. Equity Group, which of course reported those numbers, first half numbers, traded to the upside. It's rallied 3.973% since releasing those earnings. KCB eased back 2.13% to close at 46. That looks a bargain basement price. Co-op Bank has displayed a lot more alpha than its peers, but it too fell yesterday, retreated 2.96%. EABL, which reported those sparkling 40% acceleration in profit after tax, underlying organic number was actually 16%, very, very respectable. Has rebounded 4.6% since releasing those results. It's not all doom and gloom. Mumia Sugar was strong yesterday, up 5.26%. Kengen up 1.2%. KPLC up 1.58%. So just generally a bit better tone, a bit more balance in the market. It's been a precipitous drop, hasn't it? And I think it's caught a lot of people off guard. Once again, thank you for stopping by.